But before we begin, I ask you to open your heart, your mind, and your spirit, because what you are about to hear is not a message of ease. It is a word of urgency, of revelation, of a battle raging even now in the unseen realm. They told us the war would come with bombs and bullets, that the shaking of nations would be heard in the roar of armies and the thunder of missiles. But what if the war began not with fire from the sky, but with a whisper? What if the battlefield was not a distant land, but the nursery, the cradle, the very womb itself? We are living in the days of a hidden war, a war waged not with tanks or weapons, but against the most sacred vessel of life on earth, motherhood. They will tell you this is about politics. They will tell you it's about rights, about laws, about progress. But it is not. What you are seeing, what you are feeling, is something far deeper. It is a war. Not a war of flesh and blood, but of principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness, and spiritual forces of evil. A war that began in the heavens and now manifests on the earth. A war not fought with guns or tanks, but with ideas, with deception, with confusion. And at the heart of this war is the sacred vessel, the bearer of life, the woman, the mother. The war against motherhood is not new. It is ancient, and it is not political. It is spiritual. From the beginning of time, the enemy has known something. If he can destroy the source, he can stop the stream. If he can defile the womb, he can corrupt the future. If he can turn the heart of a mother cold, he can silence generations. This is not about policies. It is about principalities. This is not about freedom. It is about bondage. The attack on motherhood is the enemy's way of severing the link between heaven and earth, between divine design and human destiny. In ancient Israel, when the people turned from God, they offered up their children to Molech. They burned them in fire. It was unthinkable, and yet it became normal. Why? Because when the culture turns from God, it doesn't just forget him, it wages war against everything that reflects him. Motherhood is one of the clearest reflections of the heart of God. It is nurturing, it is sacrificial, it is life-bearing. And so in the end times, it must be targeted. The enemy whispers lies. He says, you are not enough. He says, your child is a burden. He says, you can't live your life and be a mother. And with every lie, the flame of motherhood flickers in the wind of confusion. But this is the truth. This battle is not natural. It is supernatural. The forces arrayed against motherhood are ancient, calculated, and relentless. They hide in movements, in trends, in entertainment, in legislation. They wear the mask of liberation, but speak with the voice of the serpent. And yet, even now, God calls forth a remnant. He calls forth women of courage, of faith, of power, mothers who will stand against the tide, who will guard the gate, who will not bow to the idols of the age. This is not just a cultural conflict. It is a cosmic collision. The spirit of death is raging, but the Spirit of God is mightier. And you, if you stand for life, for truth, for the sacred call of motherhood, you are not just a voice, you are a vessel. You are not just a person, you are a warrior in the kingdom of light. The war is spiritual, but the victory is already written. Do not be afraid, stand strong, stand firm, for the battle belongs to the Lord. What if I told you the gods have returned? Not in the way the world expects, not with thunder or idols of stone, but with new names, new faces, and new ancient spirits once cast down have found their way back into the modern world, not as myths or legends, but as ideologies, movements, and doctrines. What once was Molech, Baal, and Ashtoreth now parades through the streets in pride, speaks through policies, and rules through popular culture. And just like in the days of old, the children are once again placed on the altars, this time not with fire, but with convenience, with rejection, with sterile clinics that echo with silence. The war against motherhood is fueled by the return of these ancient entities. The same powers that demanded the blood of innocents now move subtly, persuasively, seductively, cloaked in the language of empowerment and rights. In the days of Israel's rebellion, they turned from the God who gave them life and bowed to gods who demanded death. They sacrificed their sons and daughters to gain prosperity, favor, or personal freedom, and the prophets cried out against it. But the people would not hear. And now, here we are again, living in a culture that once honored motherhood, but now mocks it, that once cherished life, but now discards it, The altars may have changed, but the spirits behind them remain the same. Molech still demands his offerings, only now the fire is hidden and the name is choice. This is not just about laws. It's not just about clinics. It's about thrones, spiritual thrones being reclaimed by the ancient darkness. The gods of self, of pride, of sexual indulgence, these are not modern inventions. These are ancient devourers. Come back to a world that has emptied itself of truth. And just as in the ancient days, they begin their conquests by going after the children, the womb, the mothers, because they know if they can destroy motherhood, they can break the cycle of life. If they can sever the bond between mother and child, they can rewrite the image of God etched into every human soul. The gods have returned, and they are after the very root of creation. They attack identity. They blur gender, they exalt self above sacrifice, and yet through all this there is a cry rising. A cry for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. A cry to the Remutune, yes, but so has the call of Elijah. So has the voice crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. For while the enemy advances, so too does the kingdom of God. And you, child of God, are not called to retreat, but to stand. You are not called to bow, but to rise. The ancient war has returned to our modern world, but so has the ancient power of the Most High. And it will be by that power that the altars fall and the captives are set free. There was a time when motherhood was honored, when a woman carrying life was seen as sacred, when to be a mother was to walk in the divine design of God Himself. But now we live in a culture that does not honor, it deconstructs, it mocks, it redefines. The world tells you today that motherhood is not a calling but a curse, not a purpose but a problem. And yet behind those words, behind that deception, lies a deeper darkness. It is not just confusion, it is a coordinated assault, a spiritual war. And what is the target? The image of God in woman. The role that was meant to bring life is now painted as a prison. The act of creation has been twisted into a limitation. They say womanhood is fluid, changeable, interchangeable, no longer sacred, no longer distinct. They have removed the glory of what it means to be a woman and replaced it with something hollow, something empty. They erase the boundaries that God Himself set in place. And when you erase the boundaries, you erase the meaning. When you redefine womanhood, you ultimately reject motherhood, because you cannot uphold the sanctity of motherhood while denying the identity of the mother. This is not progress, it is regression. This is not liberation, it is deception. The lie is ancient, you will be like God. It was the same in Eden, and it's the same now. The enemy says, why be a mother when you can be anything else? And in chasing after anything, we've lost the value of everything. A generation has been told that to bear children is to be chained, that to nurture is to be weak, that the self is higher than sacrifice. But the truth is the opposite. To be a mother is to reflect God's own heart. He who gives life, who nurtures, who loves even unto pain. To reject that is to reject a reflection of the divine. So now the culture lifts up the self, the temporary, the fleeting, and it tears down what is eternal. It exalts the artificial and despises the natural. It glorifies rebellion and shames submission to God's will. But God's ways are not man's ways. His design cannot be undone by hashtags or rewritten by slogans. The truth remains, even if the world denies it. And the truth is this: motherhood is a sacred mantle. It is not less than, it is more than career, more than status, more than applause. It is legacy. It is eternity placed in a woman's hands. But here is the hope. There is a remnant, a rising, those who will not forget who they are, who will not bow to the gods of this age, who will stand for life, for truth, for identity. And through them, through you, the veil of deception will be torn. The light will shine in the darkness, and the glory of God will once again be seen in the life of a mother. The cry of a newborn, and the heart that says, yes, Lord, I will carry what you've given. When a nation turns from God, it doesn't just walk away, it runs. It doesn't just forget, it rebels. And rebellion never stays in one place. It spreads. It touches everything. It poisons the sacred, distorts the beautiful, and inverts the very order that God established. And so it is now. The war against motherhood is not an isolated battle. It is part of a much greater war, a war against the Creator himself, against the design he wrote into the fabric of existence, against the order he called good from the beginning. In the beginning, God made the male and female. He formed the woman not as an afterthought, but as a counterpart, a vessel of life, a reflection of his nurturing heart. And through that woman would come life, generations, nations, redemption itself. That design was not random, it was divine. And yet now the enemy seeks to erase it. He does not merely oppose motherhood. He opposes the very structure that makes it possible. He blurs the lines of gender. He confuses the role of father and mother. He tells the world that design is restriction, that order is oppression, that difference is division. But it is all a lie, because in God's order, there is harmony. In his design, there is life. The enemy knows this. That is why he attacks the root. Because if he can destroy the image of man and woman, he can destroy the image of God reflected through them. If he can confuse identity, he can confuse purpose. And if he can destroy purpose, he can destroy destiny. So he has unleashed a tidal wave of confusion, of redefinition, of rebellion. They say now that a man can give birth, that womanhood is a costume, that identity is a choice, but if everything is everything, then nothing is anything. This is not liberation, it is annihilation, the erasing of the divine fingerprint. And in the center of it all stands motherhood, under attack, under pressure, misunderstood and misrepresented. Because motherhood is a pillar, a cornerstone. If you remove it, the house collapses. If you twist it, the generations fall. The war on motherhood is the enemy's way of shaking the very foundation of society. Not with explosions, but with erosion, slowly, steadily, deceitfully. But the Lord has not changed. His order stands. His truth remains. And his people must rise, not with hate, not with violence, but with boldness, with love, with clarity, to say what the world will not, to honor what the world now despises, to lift up what the world has cast down. For in doing so, we are not just defending motherhood, we are defending creation, the divine image, and the very blueprint of life itself. The time is now. The voice must be clear, the stand must be taken. For if the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? But if the righteous rise, then even in the midst of chaos, the order of heaven will break through, and what was stolen will be restored. In an age where darkness is called light and light is called darkness, every act of righteousness becomes an act of rebellion. Every step toward truth becomes a threat to the enemy's kingdom. And so in this generation, choosing motherhood, yes, simply choosing to bring life into the world is no longer seen as normal. It is radical. It is resisted. It is spiritual warfare, because to bear life in a culture of death is to declare war on the altars of Molech. To carry a child in a world that worships self is to become a vessel of defiance. In the end times, to choose life is to shake the gates of hell. The world will not applaud it. The world will not celebrate it. The world will call it backwards, unnecessary, even oppressive. But heaven calls it sacred. Hell calls it dangerous. Because motherhood is not a passive act. It is a threat to the kingdom of darkness. The womb that nurtures a child becomes a holy battlefield. The arms that rock a baby at night become the arms that hold back the tide of darkness. The voice that sings a lullaby becomes the echo of God's own voice, the voice of life speaking into a world of death. Do you understand the power of a mother who chooses to give life? It is not just a personal decision. It is a declaration. It is a strike against the lies that say you must choose between purpose and motherhood, between success and sacrifice, between life and freedom. The enemy says, you will lose everything if you say yes. But God says, in saying yes, you gain eternity. Because every life you bring forth carries divine purpose. Every heartbeat in the womb is a song written in heaven. This is the unseen war. And those who fight it are not wearing armor made of steel, but of faith, love, and courage. The mother who says yes to life is standing on the front lines. She's not wearing medals, but stretch marks. She's not holding a sword, but a child. And yet she is one of the fiercest warriors in the battle between light and darkness. The world does not see her, but heaven does. And the enemy fears her. And you, if you are that mother, or if you stand for life, you are not insignificant. You are not small. You are part of a divine resistance. Every prayer over your child, every sacrifice you make, every stand you take against a culture of death, heaven sees it. It echoes in eternity. You are not losing, you are winning. You are not giving up your future. You are creating it. So rise up, daughter of God. Do not be ashamed. Do not be silent. For in choosing life, you have chosen to defy the darkness. And your yes is not just a beginning, it is a victory, a flame in the night, a cry of hope in a world that's forgotten how to hope. And through that cry, life will triumph. There was a time when the family stood like a fortress, strong, grounded, immovable, a place of refuge, of identity, of truth. But now we are watching the collapse of that very fortress. The walls have been breached. The pillars are crumbling. The family, once the cornerstone of civilization, is now under full-scale assault. And at the very heart of that assault lies the role of the mother. For you can shake the mother, you can shake the home. If you remove her influence, her nurturing, her presence, then what remains becomes hollow, structure without soul. We live in a generation that idolizes independence but fears commitment, that praises individuality but forgets the power of community, and the family has become the casualty. The enemy knows this. The strength of a society lies not in its armies nor in its politics, but in its homes. And who holds the heart of the home? The mother. So to weaken the family, you must weaken the mother. You must distract her, burden her, shame her, or convince her that what she does is insignificant. But it is not insignificant. It is everything. A godly mother shapes destinies. She carries the next generation not only in her womb, but in her spirit, her prayers, her love. The enemy wants the world to forget that. So he fills the culture with noise, entertainment that dishonors mothers, systems that separate children from their homes, voices that call truth outdated. He pushes women to feel they must trade their motherhood for meaning, when in reality, motherhood is one of the greatest meanings of all. When the enemy cannot destroy from the outside, he infiltrates from within. He convinces families to divide. He pits father against mother, child against parent. He rewrites roles and tells mothers they are replaceable. But God's design was never confusion. It was order. And in his order, the mother is a foundation. She is the nurturer, the builder, the one who weaves love into the very fabric of daily life. When the world dishonors that, it sows chaos. When it removes that, it invites collapse. Yet, even now, there is a call to restore the home, a call to raise up mothers of courage, of clarity, of compassion, a call to return to what the world abandoned, to rebuild the walls of the family, not with bricks, but with faith, to speak identity back into children, truth back into the atmosphere, and love back into the structure. The world may forget the power of the mother, but heaven never does. Every act of love, every whispered prayer over a sleeping child, every time she stands in the gap, that is kingdom warfare. That is divine legacy. And from those homes, from those mothers, a generation will rise stronger, grounded, whole. The collapse can be reversed, but it begins with restoration. And restoration begins with the return of the mother to her divine calling. That is the victory the enemy fears most. There is a silence in our world today, but it is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of absence, the absence of something sacred. The absence of a voice that once shaped the hearts of generations. The absence of the voice of the mother. In ancient times, the voice of a mother was the first sound a child knew. It was the voice that taught, that prayed, that corrected, that comforted. It echoed through the home, through the generations. But now that voice is being silenced, not by force, but by persuasion. Not by chains, but by distraction. And yet, in that silence, something far darker begins to speak. When the voice of the mother fades, other voices rise to take its place. The voice of the screen, the voice of the culture, the voice of indoctrination. Voices that speak not life, but confusion. Not truth, but lies. Not love, but emptiness. And a generation raised in that absence becomes a generation adrift, without anchor, without direction, without the gentle yet unshakable guidance of a mother's wisdom. The enemy knows the power of that voice. That is why he seeks to drown it out with noise, with busyness, with He tells the mother, you are not enough. Your voice doesn't matter. Your presence can be replaced. But that is a lie from the pit, because the voice of a mother carries an authority that cannot be duplicated. It is not just human. It is sacred. It shapes hearts. It teaches love. It reveals God. And when that voice is aligned with the voice of the Lord, it becomes a prophetic force in the earth. This is why the enemy fears it, because a mother who knows her authority, who speaks truth into her children, who declares life over her home, she becomes a weapon against the darkness. Her voice becomes a trumpet of God's love, a rebuke to every lie, a healing balm to broken souls. That voice was never meant to be silent. It was meant to resound with purpose, with compassion, with conviction. So the call goes out to every mother, to every woman who has been told to be quiet, to stand back, to diminish herself. The Lord says, rise and speak. Speak truth to your children. Speak life into your home. Speak courage into your weary soul. Your voice was given to shift atmospheres, to push back darkness, to plant seeds of eternity into the soil of young hearts. The world does not know how much it needs your voice, but heaven does, and hell fears it. And to those who say, but I failed, hear this. Your past does not disqualify your calling. Your silence yesterday does not prevent your voice today. The same God who called Moses from a desert, who raised up Esther from obscurity, is calling you now. So let your voice rise again. Let it speak as it once did. For when the voice of the mother returns, the heart of the family is restored, and with it, the soul of a nation. And so I say to you, if you are a mother, a daughter, or one called to honor life, let not this generation be the one that bowed to the gods of death and confusion. Let it be the one that rose up, that turned back, that chose life. The war is fierce, but the victory belongs to the Lord. And you, child of God, are not called to fear, but to fight the good fight, to run the race, to birth light in the midst of the darkness. May God strengthen your heart, sharpen your vision, and anoint your voice as you carry this message forward. Thank you for standing. Thank you for choosing life. And may you walk boldly in the days ahead for such a time as this. Blessings and shalom.